I think we also brought high character guys. And there's a lot of excitement, but we also understand that we're going to have to, you know, get in the gym and gotta have to work. We haven't seen those guys practice or play together, so it's gonna take time for them to get to know each other, to find that team chemistry. But again, we're optimistic and we believe in this group, and we believe in Billy. So I think we got a lot of positivity going into the season.
Bulls Media Day is in the books, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't know about all of you, but seeing all of the new guys in the Bulls uniform for the first time got me super hyped for this upcoming season. We've got training camp starting tomorrow, the Bulls' first preseason game a week after that, and we're nearly 3 weeks away from opening night where the Bulls will be taking on the Pistons. I absolutely cannot wait, and I can't wait to follow along with all of you guys throughout the season. But in today's video, I'll be going over Media Day, summarizing it for you guys, highlighting takeaways and quotes from the players, and I'll also share some images and videos from the day as well. At least what I can get that isn't copyright protected. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. So Media Day is always fun for fans, well, particularly the media, because they get to see their team and their new roster for the first time in their uniforms, but it's a place where players are interviewed to discuss their offseason training and their expectations for the season. However, you have to admit that the past 4 years of Media Days for the Bulls haven't really been something to get too excited about. Yes, it was cool to see Zach LaVine in a Bulls uniform for the first time, seeing Lauri Markkanen, who we thought was going to have a lot of potential, was also exciting to see. The expectations of him really becoming a key piece of the franchise was there for a time. I'll admit, last Media Day, I did have very high expectations, seeing the guys back after a horrible season under Jim Boylen and looking to redeem themselves after their season was abruptly cut short due to the pandemic. So seeing the young core of Coby White, Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr., and of course, the Bulls' newest draft pick in Patrick Williams left me with a lot of hope for that team and at least making the playoffs for the first time since Jimmy Butler. But of course, we all know what happened. I don't want to reiterate that to you guys. It wasn't meant to be, but we're putting all of that behind us. That was last season, and looking forward ahead to the future and seeing guys like DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, Alice Johnson, among others, wearing the classic Bulls jerseys. And not only that, but looking happy and excited to be a part of this team and this organization has to be one of the prettiest sights that you'll ever see for Bulls fans, at least in a very, very long time. Now, of course, the real practices and training start tomorrow. Obviously, none of that was today, and really just the guys simply being available for pictures and interviews. But there were some key takeaways from some of the interviews with players and coaches in the front office. So they kicked off this session with Arturas Karnisovas and Billy Donovan. Obviously, Zach and his future with the Bulls was brought up right away, and how confident they felt in keeping Zach on this roster beyond next year's free agency. And AK was pretty straightforward and not really beating around the bush. He said, "We're committed to Zach. We want him to be in Chicago for a long time." He then also added to that, with the moves that they made at the deadline and the offseason, that they proved they're committed to him long term. Now, if there is one thing that we know about Arturas, is that he doesn't bullshit. He'll say it like it is. And even though we all know that they already committed to Zach long term, it's pretty clear that their goal is to build around that guy. So for all these people who are saying this front office might trade Zach or they won't re-sign him, the only way that isn't going to happen is if Zach doesn't want to be here. It's pretty clear that the front office got him the help that he wanted and needed. And then for Zach, when he was interviewed, he mentioned how the front office discussed with him and got his input on the moves that were made beforehand. And then look, I mean, you can tell in Zach's interview, which by the way, if you were watching the live stream, crapped out in the middle of it, which was annoying, but again, it happens. But you can tell in his interview that the guy just seemed very genuine and appreciative of what the front office has done in building around him and keeping him informed of their decisions. It's part of the reason why I mentioned before, I didn't like the way that ESPN characterized in their interview with Zach LaVine a few days ago that Zach and the front office discussed a contract extension but couldn't find common ground. Like, no, there was a strategy in place in terms of maximizing this roster to get them to start winning now and still being able to offer him, meaning Zach LaVine, the most money possible in next free agency. Now, for Billy Donovan, he did talk a lot about pacing on the court. I mean, I think we all saw that, whether just watching the games or looking at the numbers. This team was considerably better in terms of their pace on offense prior to the deadline versus post-deadline. And Billy Donovan really emphasized that they have to play better with speed and pace, and that by adding guys like Lonzo and DeMar who are quick in transition and have the court vision to make that happen, that their focus this season will be about improving their offensive pace to keep up with other teams around the league. One thing that I did find kind of strange was that Billy Donovan was talking about toughness and how, the guys need to be tough this season in order to ensure success, and actually talked about Patrick Williams in last season and how Patrick is a tough kid, but that he would get gassed at the end of the games. And I don't know, it was just a little weird, like he was almost implying that Patrick can be kind of soft at times. I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it too much. But Arturas also obviously got asked about the ongoing tampering investigation, and obviously he couldn't comment on that. So funny, like the media knows he's not going to say anything, but yet they have to ask it anyway, right? It is still surprising that no verdict has been reached out on that yet, and we're heading into training camp tomorrow. Like, I think we all thought that by training camp this matter would have been completed, but here we are, still nothing. DeMar DeRozan was then obviously interviewed after Zach. Obviously, there were a lot of questions around the fit of this team, specifically how he will fit with Zach. And DeMar just reiterated yet again, and you can tell he's kind of getting annoyed with these questions, but just saying, guys, this is basketball, quote unquote, this isn't rocket science. He went on to say that, if you have a group of guys that are bought in and want to win, that's all that matters. Now, even I myself had questioned the fit of DeRozan coming to the Bulls even before the sign and trade was confirmed. I always was a bit hesitant, on the Bulls pursuing DeMar DeRozan over other free agents. But what I like about DeMar, and I've talked about this before, he's one of these stars that knows how to adapt his game based on the team he's on, the style of play the league is trending to, and what's expected of him from the coaching staff. I mean, DeMar even said it point blank, it's basketball. You put me out there and I'll figure it out. It's a simple game. I always love how nonchalant he is. Like, guys, this isn't a hard game. We're not doing anything groundbreaking here. Just speaks to how good of a player he is, that playing basketball on a professional level is just that simple of a game to him. Then, of course, Lonzo was interviewed, and for Lonzo, I think one of the key takeaways was that he was asked whether he talked about his role with Billy Donovan and if he would actually be playing more of a traditional point guard role like we used to see at the beginning of his career, or he was similar to what we saw last season in being more of a 3-and-D type player, especially if DeMar is going to be controlling the ball more often. And he did confirm that after talking to Billy Donovan that he is expected to be going back to his roots and playing as a true point guard, running the offense and handling the ball, which again, I'm sure is subject to change here and there. I imagine DeMar will be controlling the ball on offense from time to time just because he is such a good passer and operates in the half court as a playmaker very well. But overall, Lonzo is going to be the point guard for this team. That's been made pretty clear if it wasn't already. Lonzo, as well as others, also did mention the fact that most of the guys on this roster really got a head start in playing and training together in the past couple of weeks leading up to training camp, and really to get a jump start on building that chemistry, which really is so important when you're talking about a completely new roster. Vucevic in his interview joked that he's one of the more longer tenured guys with this team, having just joined after the trade deadline. So coming in early and building that chemistry, that camaraderie early is critical in being ready and getting acclimated with one another when the season starts. Because I've mentioned before, it is going to take some time for this team to get used to each other. And there will be a learning curve to start off the season before really starting to gel together. I mean, if you look at the rough patch of schedule in November for the Bulls, for the, where they're going to be playing some of the best teams in the league, a lot of it on the road, that could be a tough stretch for a team that is still getting used to their play style and coming up with an identity. So obviously we hope that this team doesn't get off to a slow start, because as Bulls fans will be up in arms after all the moves that were made, but don't be surprised if that ends up being the case, especially with the challenging schedule early on. And then maybe, hopefully anyway, they get it together and start winning consistently as we head into December. Lonzo also mentioned that his decision to come to Chicago was an easy one, how the Bulls really were always the front runners in this process for him when it came to free agency. And as Bulls fans, you have to be pleased with a response like that. Knowing that after all of those years under Garpax, how Chicago really wasn't a free agency destination, and how the Bulls weren't the first choice for most free agents. You didn't really see too many guys get excited and jump up at the chance of playing in Chicago. And DeRozan reiterated that as well, saying that guys on the roster helped recruit him, specifically Vucevic, and how the front office really sold him on the idea of winning and wanting to win now. And for a guy like DeRozan at this point in his career, 32 years old, he could have gone the easy route and joined a team like the Lakers, the Clippers, or the Heat to ring chase for the back half of his career. But no, he chose Chicago. and I think that says a lot about this new front office more than anything to be able to change the culture so quickly. All that being said though, Arturas, as much as he really has earned a lot of respect for what he's been able to do in revamping this team, but he did say that despite all this excitement that everyone has for this organization, he did say that we are going to have to prove it every day. We have to earn it. We have to earn respect. And it's true. Now is the time to prove that these moves made over the offseason are going to bear fruit and that they're going to lead to a better team that can start winning and head in to a path of being a contending team again in the near future. Patrick Williams was also interviewed, and of course his injury was brought up. He said he's feeling okay, and he actually sprained his ankle landing on someone's foot, evidently. He initially didn't think it was all that bad, but then it swelled up and got worse, and of course, now we're at where we are. He said this is pretty new for him, being injured for this extended period of time. He's finding ways to stay active while he's out, still conditioning. Patrick was also asked about his positioning, and he was pretty open, saying that he's really able to play the 3 or 4, that he's open to playing any role that he needs to. And not even just by position, but also as it relates to being more aggressive on offense versus playing more heavy defense. So those were the main interviews. I mean, at least thus far anyway. I know that there are some post-press conference interviews going on right now. There will obviously be more photo ops as well, so I'll keep you guys posted on all of that. Like I said, training camp starts tomorrow. I'll keep you guys updated and summarizing each day of camp as it concludes, so make sure you're subscribed and tuning into the channel, not just for training camp, but for the whole season. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. Have a good evening, and I will catch you in the next one.